Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. This week, we have the pleasure of welcoming MMA all-time great, BKFC announcer, colorman, Chris Lytle. Chris, how you doing, my man? Thanks for joining us.
Man, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for letting me come talk with you guys.
Chris, I got a ton of stuff I want to ask you.
All right.
I mean, we're literally like, I'm only a year younger than you, but I can think of a handful of. I know you fought out here in Jersey, where I'm from, in Atlantic City,
Yep.
I guess when I talk to somebody that I've seen fight as often from kind of before the sport reached combat sports as a whole got to where it is now, with internet and social media and all that stuff. I mean, what would you say to you is like different from when you were, fighting, was it Cage Rage, UFC, and all the stuff you did? Like what have you seen the sport evolve into, in your opinion, now to this day? Is it better or worse? Like, what's your take on it?
In many ways it's better. I think in some ways it's worse. I mean, it just depends on what aspects you're talking about. Obviously, I think the level of competition, the training, all that's way better. The evolution of the sport. It's always funny how things go in waves, and just people just keep getting better and better and better. Hell, even myself, I feel like I'm better in some aspects. My knowledge is more. Just the more you do it, the longer time you get better. We've getting. I think when more money got involved, you get better caliber of athlete who's decided to start doing it. It used to be if you were that caliber playing football or basketball, people were like, screw it, I can make money doing this. I can do good things with this. So that's gotten better. I think, some aspects of it, for example, I was talking to somebody the other day. We were talking about, I remember in UFC 55 or something, 52. We afterwards, you'd be kind of hanging out afterwards, and you'd be in somebody's big room or a couple rooms connected, and it'd be like, over there you see like Chuck Liddell, and over here I'm hanging out with like Evan Tanner and Randy Couture, and like it was just these little small parties, everybody be together. Now it's like I'm at the Pure, I got my own after party, but it was just like a smaller, intimate group. Everybody kind of knew each other a little bit more. There were some pretty cool aspects of that, and like I think every fighter was really in it. They just like to fight. You know what I mean? I think maybe not quite as much. Now people are like, oh, I just want to make a career here and outbox this guy and try and hold him back. I mean, those people just wanted to fight back then. So I think a little bit of the mentality is a little bit different. And just little things like that is a little more intimate, closer. Everybody knew each other a little more because it was smaller.
That's funny you asked that, Ed, because I actually was talking to a friend the other day, and they asked me about that, being that I was around back then, and I kind of explained it. Now fighters seem today to be searching for kind of fortune and glory.
Yeah.
Back then there was no fortune. There was some glory. There was glory, but it was still even a small glory. They didn't know about you necessarily in Indonesia. You were known about in Vegas. You were known about in Japan, and stuff like that. You were known
in small circles. You were very popular, but as you weren't being seen on ESPN, and you didn't go. You wouldn't walk down the street in a lot of places, and people like, oh my God, get pictures taken with you. I mean, now when you went to fights, yes, that would happen, but it wasn't a mainstream thing. So yeah, like you said, I always tell people if they were fighting for the money, they just weren't very smart or weren't very good at math. I don't know what it was, but the money didn't come for a while.
Yeah. You can look back at those old paydays, and it might shock some people who are newer to the sport.
Oh yeah.
Now, as a guy who grew up in Indianapolis, looks like you had one fight. According to, I imagine you had a bunch of other fights, but according to the records that I look at, you had a fight, and then you basically went to Japan. As a kid from Indianapolis, was there any kind of what was? I mean, around the same time, I was training with Mark Hall. I'm not sure if he fought in the early UFCs.
Yeah.
And he was fighting, doing some stuff in Japan and Brazil and stuff. Was there any apprehension for you as a fairly young guy to get on a plane and go compete in Japan?
Well, to be honest with you, I had a lot more fights than that. I probably had 15 of them that aren't on my record because even though they used to be on the record, they went through it and basically said any state that wasn't sanctioned at the time, those don't count. So unfortunately for me, every one I had was a win that they took away. They didn't take away my losses. that's the way it goes, though, right? They don't, so I was like 10-0 when they sent me when I went to Japan. I'd been fighting. I started in '98, so I had, I just kind of cleaned up on the Midwestern circuit and just kind of beat all the people around here. Had one big fight, my man, and then I met a lady named Phyllis Lee. I kind of knew her through my guy Jason Gotchi was fighting over in Japan, and she watched me fight a couple of times. Like, if you win this one, I'll send you over to Japan. So I was fired up. I won, and I get to go over to Japan. But no, I've been training really hard for about a year and a half to get over there, and it was just pretty much. I mean, to be honest with you, when I went over there, and then when I first fought in the UFC before Dana White and Zuf and them bought it, I thought Japan was better. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, they treated it like a real sport there. You go over there, people don't realize it's like the sport had been there for a long time in Japan. By the time I'd been there for over 10 years. So, a lot of people think the UFC was where they combined all these different martial arts. No, they'd been doing that in Japan for a long time, for several years. So, like, the UFC wasn't the beginning. That's why if you look at all the early fighters, they were from Japan who did well. Ken Shamrock, Guy Metzger, Frank Shamrock, Bas Rutten. Those guys were all been doing this for years over in Japan. So that culture, they're already understood and respected fighting for something the people here did. They thought it was a freak show here for a while, but then over there they understood the mixed martial art aspect.
So, I mean, when you talk about the way the UFC kind of the inception here with the different styles versus styles, stuff like that. When you were coming into the sport, 98, 99, just because of I when I was doing my research on you, looking back at stuff just for my questions, I saw you have a lot of you've done a lot of, you've got you kind of just clarified one thing for me, because you said you've been fighting since 98, and what I saw said 99. So
yeah.
But you just said that not a lot of that stuff's on record. I saw you have a pro boxing record of 13-1-1. Your overall bare knuckle record is 3-0, and obviously your MMA record speaks for itself. But would you say boxing was your base? You just always liked throwing hands, or?
No, man. I started off as a wrestler. Back in '98, I was a wrestler, and I started going. I never really did traditional jiu-jitsu. I was more of a catch wrestler when I got it. I mean, I did a little bit of jiu-jitsu at the beginning, but then I got involved with the people who it was more of a catch wrestling style. We really enjoyed that. And then I met up with some good stand-up fighters and some kickboxers. And I was like, man, I want to be as well-rounded as possible. And I did that. And then I started going to boxing gyms, and then I became a professional boxer, which really made me more well-rounded than most people at the time, I would say. So when I started doing a lot of boxing, I kind of fell in love with that. And then, everybody saw me as this boxer, but, they didn't really realize that before that, I was more of a ground specialist. So I'm throwing punches and making people take bad shots on me, and put that they felt like if they get me the ground, they're fine. Then I'd submit them. So it kind of worked out in my favor. Nobody really knew exactly. I mean, people had a misconception of me as a fighter.
You mentioned Phyllis Lee, and she has never been mentioned on our podcast. For those that don't know, I know her from being Dan Severn's manager.
Oh, yeah.
In the early UFCs, and actually just kind of being thrown off by a older lady. I have no idea how old she was at the time, but an older lady. An older lady kind of yelling and screaming with, she's got Dan's sweaty shirt on her shoulder, and, she's kind of sitting there. And but anybody who's done anything into her, she has a major role in the history of mixed martial arts.
Man, if you wanted to go over and fight in Pancrase, it was one of the best, and you were from America, you had to go through Phyllis, and like I said, my guy Jason lived in Indianapolis, and she was his manager. And when I started training with Jason and started fighting, he was just like, he talked to Phyllis about me, because she sent I remember she sent a guy over. He's supposed to go fight over in Pancrase, and she sent him down to train with Jason. And so Jason was like, okay, Chris, we're going to train with this guy. And I was just beating the guy, and this guy was all discombobulated, and he's mad. He's like, I'm not going over to Japan. They're beating me over here, and he's like, even this guy's beating me. He didn't even know who I was. So then I was like, I'll go. And then they kind of sent me over instead, so it was kind of nice.
So let me ask, obviously all this all this time fighting, I mean, you find yourself in the world of bare knuckle. I
Uh-huh.
mean, you're doing the announcing. I mean, you fought and stuff. Like, what drew you? What drew you to bare knuckle? I mean, is it just because the competition in you? You just want to compete and you like being around it, or
That's part of it. But I feel like I started fighting in '98, and back then when I would fight, I mean, we didn't even call it MMA. It was called NHB, no holds barred. So you could headbutt, you could knee the head on the ground, you could kick, soccer kick, you could do whatever, man. There was a lot less rules, and that was something like, not that I enjoyed the freedom of that, and it made it different. Like, you couldn't sit there and wait for something because you knew a headbutt was coming. You had to roll, you had to move. It opened up more submissions, but it also made you, I think, a more complete, better fighter. But people weren't as good back then. Like I said, you could get serious damage. Well, I understand why they've done this stuff, but so that aspect never really bothered me. So, I love boxing. I love doing MMA, and I remember at one point, I'm retired, been retired for several years, and I'm looking on the internet, and I see on Facebook it's like Joe Riggs bare knuckle fight in London. I was like, what the hell's wrong with Joe, man? I said, I gotta watch it. So I click on the link. I said, I gotta watch what he's doing. I thought they were going to be like in some, like a warehouse with people smoking cigars and betting 100,000. So I'm watching, and it wasn't like that at all. I was like, okay. And about halfway through the fight, I go, I think I got to at least try this once. You know what I mean? I was like, I consider myself a combative athlete who's done everything possible. Like, I haven't done this. I'm going to get a hold of these guys. So eventually I found out. It took me months. I got a hold of those guys, and they're like, yeah, we'll have you fight. Flew me out there. I fought. And then I came back to the States and came and talked to the Indiana boxing, or, the athletic commission, tried to get it legalized here. And they were like, yeah, we're not legalizing it. So, all right. Then I got a phone call a little bit later from BKFC, and they were asking me to fight, and I was like, hell yeah, I'll do it a couple of times. But then at that point, I was already 44 or so, 43, 44. I was like, man, I want to do this, but I also I've been fighting long enough in all kinds of different realms. I enjoy commentary. I'd like to do some commentary for you guys, but I felt like it was good that I've had 3 fights, so I wouldn't respect somebody or trust them if they hadn't had any fights to commentate it very well. So I have enough knowledge because I've done it some, and just 20 plus years of fighting.
No, I think that's commendable. That you do it. I think it's awesome that you I think it's just cool that you did it. And like you said, for to be respected, I think that's something that a lot of people don't do.
Well, it's not even just respect. It's just that I wouldn't have an intimate knowledge of it if I hadn't been in there, and you have to go through that just so I can understand things from their eyes. It's easy for me to sit here and talk what's going on. That quarterback's running through this. You don't know, Chris, you've never been in the NFL. You might have played backyard football, not the same thing. So I felt like it was important that I got out there and do it.
Well, on a couple notes, I would like to commend you and Sean Wheelock over the weekend. Between me watching Bellator, UFC, and BKFC, you guys were the best booth of the weekend.
My man.
I mean, I love, we all love Rogan and those guys, and the guys, Big John and stuff. But you guys are clean. You guys, I've been a fan of Sean Wheelock for a long time. I thought him and Jimmy Smith were like the best ever when they were doing Bellator, and you do a great job with him. I like the flow of it, and I just want to commend you on that.
I really appreciate that. I'm very fortunate. Sean is such an easy guy. He just sets me up for layups. All I gotta do is make him. I remember when I first started doing it with him, he was like, Chris, your job is to pretend you're the corner man. What are you going to tell your guy if he's your fighter? I'm like, all right, cool. I'm saying, so if he's doing something good or what he needs to do or what he's doing wrong, I think that's my job, is to try and give people insight like that. And that's just based on what he's kind of telling me. And then just us doing reps together and getting more familiar with others. Sean's easy to work with, man. He's about as easy as it gets. He knows his job well, and he carries my ass along.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just add to, you can finish in a minute, man. Just because when you said that, Chris, I mean, that's one of the things. My biggest, whatever you want to call it, gripe is when people try to with the growth of the sport. Like the first question I asked you, one of the things that kind of bother me is that you get a lot of these like new people that are not as familiar with it, and they're in a place where they say and comment and put a lot of their insight in it. And I mean, with more eyes on it, you want more people like yourself that have been in, like you said, you've been there, you felt it, you felt the I mean, you've been you've won, you've lost. That's the stuff that matters to I think to most fans, and it's a way to educate people about the sport too. Because, like you said, you went to the commission, and without even probably looking at any statistics or anything, they were like, no, because they just heard bare knuckle. And I feel like guys like yourself, you're going to be the ones that add those details to make folks think twice and give it a second look. So I just wanted to add that.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I remember the thing Indiana said, but it was, Chris, Indiana's not going to be the first state to do anything. That was when we left. I was like, okay, we're done here, because I know you're not going to change. Doesn't matter what I say, because a study just came out. The BKFC validated when they said, it's less damaging than boxing or MMA. That's what I was trying to tell. Even to, coming back and having some fights in my mid 40s, the wife, obviously family wasn't very happy with it, but I was like, look, this is the only thing I'll do. This is way safer than boxing, way safer than MMA. And I fully believe that. Especially even the training. I don't stand there. I'm in and out. You have to spar different, train different, and fight different. So you can't be there. I mean, you can't take that many punches or you're going to be cut. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you're superficially, it's worse. You're going to get cut, but you're not going to do brain damage. I don't care if I get cut. I care if I'm, 20 years from now and I'm sitting there, shadow boxing in my living room thinking I have a fight coming up. My kid's like, that's just grandpa. I don't want to be that guy. So that's why, I mean, it is safer. And I don't know, that's just why that was important for me to let people understand that.
Yeah, we had Joey Beltran on the week before he fought Marcel Stamps, and he commented the same thing. He said after every one of my UFC fights, I was basically bedridden for a good week to 2 weeks with a concussion. He goes, I've never had that. I've never had a concussion. I've never missed training the kids at my gym on Monday morning after a BKFC fight. He goes, sometimes I'm ugly looking. He goes, but
that's always.
Yeah. But to get back to the other thing. So again, I've been to 200 something live MMA events going back. I had to get out to this BKFC thing, even during a pandemic from Southern California. I flew out to Kansas. I needed to get to an event I needed the rush again of just seeing it. After seeing it, you fighting in it means that much more to me, because it is something totally different. This isn't boxing. This isn't MMA. It's its own technique. It's its own style. I've talked to a lot of MMA fighters. It takes something special to get into the ring, especially to watch what goes down and then step into it.
Man, I remember like the first time I got in there over in Europe. I remember I was the guy. He came out and had different movement. He came and he went to throw this overhand right. And I was like, I know it's an overhand right. And I know I can block it and step in and throw this uppercut. But at the same time, I was like, if I don't block this right, I'm getting cut or knocked out. I mean, it was just this thing. In a split second, I was like, disengage, So it took me probably a round before I got my distance down. It was just different. People don't understand that the distance is different because, this is easy to block with gloves on, but this and you miss and it could be. I've seen a couple of fights where a guy was getting wrecked and all of a sudden one punch, boom, he cuts the guy open, fight's over. I mean, it's more so than any other combative sport. One punch is all it takes. I mean, one of the fights we had this weekend, I think Jason Vance coming in and Quentin Henry hit him with a jab and knocked him out. Just hit him in the eye and was like, I can't see, And had a couple of those where a guy got hit right in the eyeball. It's like, dude, that knuckle fits in there. Glove's not fitting in there, but you get in the eyeball, that hurts, and fight over. So once you realize that, it is different. And man, if you guys haven't watched it, I bet you have, but you watch Jason Knight and Artem Lobov like the first time they fought.
Yeah.
Man, that was an intense fight. Dude. I was there, doing work, and I mean that place was so electric. It was one of the best fights I've ever been to personally.
That's definitely one of the more memorable BKFC fights that I've seen. And I talked to Lobov after that. I mean, that's one I'm kind of like, I feel like, I don't know. I'd like to see them do it again, but I just wanted to go back to something Matt said with everything. How has it been, doing the events the way that you do them now with during the COVID situation and stuff like that? I mean, is it more of a hassle for you? I mean, to get in and get out, or
no? I mean, man, I'll be honest with you. I don't understand how I haven't got anything at all, man. I mean, I've just never really been good at following these rules. Like I don't wear a mask half the time that I'm supposed to. I've been around a lot of people. I've flown many, many times. I've never gotten it. So, I mean, I just really haven't let it affect me. I try and take good care of my health. I take my vitamins all the time. I work out. I'm healthy, and so I'm just continuing to do everything I've been doing. I'm trying to take the precautions I can. But, man, dude, I love doing this stuff. I love being involved around these fights. So, no, I haven't really changed much about it, and hasn't been that big of a hassle to me. When you go there, usually we'll get tested, and like, yeah, okay, yeah, I still don't have anything. Let's keep going. So, I don't know, man. I'm maybe I'm way off on this. I just keep thinking maybe if I just keep trying to take care of myself and boost my immune system, maybe that's the best thing I can do. Or maybe I got the type of blood that you don't get it very much. I don't know.
No, yeah, we don't know. And the funny thing is, it's funny you're saying that because I was with my instructor last night, and he and I were talking about it, and I said to him, I was like, you think maybe because we're grappling and sweating on top of each other, we're building up our immune systems or something? I mean,
that's what I mean, man. I in our gym, I'm like, dude, people have gotten staph or whatever. I was like, we got like 10 things worth, and like Corona probably gets in here and gets his ass beat by all these other bacteria. Nothing. I mean, that's what I'm thinking, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong there, but I just feel like, us doing that is probably the best thing we can do. Hide in our house and becoming, you get less, your immunity system gets compromised, I believe, more. I don't know. I think mine's pretty strong going to where I go, my gym. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah, no, it's and luckily nothing's you haven't gotten terribly sick, so far it's working. Unfortunately, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I haven't really been sick in like 10 years, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I was actually scheduled to come out to the last show, this past one in Wichita, before it got changed. It got changed last minute, and I wasn't able to make it to Mississippi. Meeting you in Salina was obviously great. As a lifelong Laker fan, seeing Shaquille O'Neal in Mississippi. First of all, I was bummed that I wasn't there to get a chance to meet Shaq. Second of all, did you ever think you would get a chance to sit in a booth with Shaquille O'Neal?
Oh no, not at all, man. It was kind of surreal. All of a sudden, I'm there, I'm doing the prelim, and all of a sudden I feel this big old paw like on my back. I was just like, what the hell? And I look over, it was Shaquille, and I was like, oh shit, wow. He's a huge fan of the sport. Such a cool guy, man. I loved it. He came and did one of the fights with us, and we talked about it. It was nice, man. You good dude, man. I'm glad to see him, and that's just that he liking it. Oh man, this is awesome.
And that's huge for BKFC. I mean, you think back to the early days of not the early days, but like when I saw you fight at UFC 49 and UFC 51 against Ronald John and Cairo Parisian. At those times, like if you had The Rock or Jamie Presley or like any of those fans in the crowd, it was big because like all of a sudden the camera would pan on them.
Yeah.
The soundbite Shaq gave you for BKFC the other day. I mean, some promotion, and I don't know what they're allowed. I don't know how that works, but he had nothing but good things to say. I that can't be bad. It really can't.
Oh no, man. I mean, and here's the beautiful thing. Our next fight, it was going to be February 5th. It's going to be in Tampa. Super Bowl weekend where the Super Bowl's being played. There's going to be some people there. I mean, I would not be surprised if Shaq is going to be back there, and probably with the whole gang of different, celebrities and athletes. It's going to be, we're going to show out that night. And you got Paige Van Zandt doing her first fight. Oh man, it's going to. Not only that, that win is going to be fighting Bedford.
Johnny Bedford.
Bedford, yeah. Oh, jeez, man. Can you imagine? I've been looking forward to that fight for a long time.
It's funny. I mean, you kind of already answered my other question that I had for you because you just spoke so highly about BKFC. I was going to ask you, looking back now, as a fan, what's your preferred combat sport? But it sounds like the answer is BKFC.
Well, I mean, I keep telling them, man, I wish you guys were around 5 years ago. I'd been doing this so much more. But after my last fight, I had wrist surgery and just never really gotten back to one. I've always tried to kick the idea around another fight, but man, I'll be 47 before you know it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, at some point you got to stop, man. I just enjoy doing it so much. But, if there's something, when I talk to the true fighters, and I can tell if they're true fighters when you start talking bare knuckle, when they kind of get excited, when they want to, oh man, and they ask me about it. I'm like, dude, this guy's down. he just likes to fight. He just likes combative sports. Some people just do this stuff because they're really good at it, and some people just love it. And you know, I was in that first. You know, I mean, I wasn't in that first. I was the second. I just love to do it. You know, and so it's just fun for me to be around it and be part of it. And to be honest with you too, I tell a lot of the fighters, when you're older, like I remember after I retired, at one point I was like, man, I got another fight or two left in me, and I went and I trained. And I remember I was talking to Mitchell, and he's like, dude, how'd you feel after you trained 2 days in a row? I was like, terrible. He's like, try and do that 20 days in a row. I was like, yeah, I couldn't get through a camp. I mean, it would just hurt. Like, I only know how to go one way, hard all the time. Go in every day, day in, day out, go. But you can't do that when you're in your 40s, man. I mean, your back hurts, your shoulder hurts, your knees hurt. But you know what? When you go to do a bare knuckle fight, these two things, you go in, you hit the mitts, you hit the bag, you jump rope, you spar. That's it, man. It's so easy. I mean, I wouldn't say it's easy, but that's like a third of your practice for an MMA fight. You know what I mean? So it's so much easier on your body. Only thing you worry about is your hands and your shoulder. I mean, but it's not like you're having knee problems, back problems. I mean, that's just not non-existent with that. So I think it's good for older fighters who can't do it. I mean, in order to really do a proper MMA fight, you'd have to be on some form of something. And that's really not possible anymore. I mean, I feel bad for the guys who, you know, USADA came in and look how people have tanked because they're not necessarily using those testosterone and growth hormone to get bigger and stronger. They're just doing so they can train 3 days in a row. I get it, but you just can't do it.
Well, you just said that. I've been thrashed over the last 20 years for basically saying that's what was necessary, especially in the early days when you were fighting as often as you were. You know, now you can be a big UFC star and really fight once a year if that's what you choose to do. Back then, you know, guys like Travis Fulton and those guys were fighting 3 times a week. You know, I mean, he's the extreme, but even you, I mean, you fought everybody. Looking down your record, I mean, you fought from 2000 basically to 2010 or so. You fought everybody in the welterweight division. With the exception maybe of George St. Pierre. Is he the one fight that you missed not having?
Oh, yeah. You know, I was really looking forward to that. I remember when we were on The Ultimate Fighter, he came out there and he trained with us, you know, and I felt like I did very well with him. And I was like, man, this dude, I want to fight him and see, you know, I want to really test myself and see where I'm at. Unfortunately, when I fought, you know, Matt Serra, I lost a split decision, and Serra went out and knocked him out the next fight. And, you know, I always wanted to have that fight. I mean, you know, I like George. He's a super nice guy, but man, it isn't about that. I don't dislike anybody I fight. Usually, I'm actually friends. It really sucks. I fought Matt Serra twice. I'm great friends with him. I think he's one of my favorite people in the sport. But it is what it is. You fight who you have to fight, and I always wanted to fight St. Pierre just because he was, you know, what I considered, you know, the top guy up there. And who doesn't want to test himself against the best?
Do you take any? I mean, you were one of the few fighters who made a name for themselves that actually kind of got to retire or walk away, at least from the UFC, fairly much on top. You won your last fight against a tough Dan Hardy. You won 4 of your last fights. You were a #1 title contender in a couple of those fights. Do you get to look back at that and at least feel like you got to, you know, you didn't, you know, I like, you know, Emelianenko Fedor is one of my idols, and obviously he's had it rougher. BJ Penn's had a hell of a run. Chuck Liddell, it didn't end great for. Crow Cop, a lot of those guys kind of from your era. Do you get to look back and kind of think like, you know, maybe I quit a fight early, but I'd rather quit a fight early than a fight late?
Oh yeah, you know, and I think Dana and them, I think they kind of like the way I left it because they don't like to see that, man. Like, you know, I know Dana really, really likes Chuck Liddell, and he really likes Matt Hughes and those guys, and to see them keep coming back, and you know, he doesn't like that. And then like Cowboy, he was saying, man, we need to seriously talk. You know, he doesn't want to see people, because Dana's smart enough. He knows what that 10 years later looks like, and the 20 years later looks like, you know, and it's not good. I mean, one of the scariest things ever. I remember my second pro boxing match. It was down in Memphis, Tennessee, and I went in there and I couldn't understand the guy like setting the things up. I was like talking to my coach, like, what's he saying? He said we need to go over here. I'm like, well, what's he saying? I mean, the guy was just couldn't talk right. I was like, Jesus, man, that's not gonna happen to me. And he's like, no, he said, we're going to limit you to like five like wars, and you're not going to have more than that. So I was like, all right, whatever. But I mean, I didn't really get that as much. Like, I can take as many as one. No, you can't. You know, I mean, they were taking care of me and being smart. So, you know, it was kind of funny how it really happened why I decided to retire. Like I said, I won 5 out of my last 6 fights, but I just I'd been hurt one of my fights, and I fought anyway. And afterwards, I decided to actually take a little bit of time off. Like I said, I never took time off. I was always in the gym, and I had to rehab my knee because I had surgery. And I went to my son's basketball games and my daughter's gymnastics stuff, and usually I couldn't do that. So all of a sudden, I'm doing that for a while, and I'm starting to realize like my kids were in high school all of a sudden, and I remember they called me and asked me if I wanted to fight Dan Hart. I was like, absolutely, and I'm excited. And I started to go to the gym that day, and I just felt it was like the first time ever I felt guilty. You know, I felt bad because I mean, you know, I had 4 kids, and I was the only one who worked. You know, my wife didn't work for like 12 years. Didn't have to because I was doing that, and it was making good money. But at the same time, I wasn't around my kids at all. You know what I mean? And I started realizing, man, these guys, they're going to be gone here soon. I'm not gonna know them like I need to. So, you know, I was at the gym. I left. I felt guilty, and I talked to the wife, and we just like, all right, it's gonna be my last fight. That gave me the freedom to go train every day. I didn't feel guilty anymore. I was like, this is it, you know. So I was able to go there. It's like, ain't no way in the world I'm gonna lose my last fight. And so I went there and I trained my ass off, and I fought Dan, and it just couldn't have been a better ending, man. Like I knew I was retiring. I handed Dana my retirement letter, and then I got to bang out like I wanted. People were telling me to take him down. I'm like, nope, I'm standing. And he tried to take me down. I got to get fight of the night and the sub of the night. It was perfect.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna rewatch that one while I'm doing the audio engineering for this podcast, man. Because like I said, I've seen a lot of your fights coming up, man, and I mean, as I'm really glad you made time to come on here. I mean, I know we're probably coming close to the end of the time, but I just wanted to say that because I mean, again, you're one of those guys that, man, I remember getting together with one of my he lives in Florida now, but my buddy that I started jiu-jitsu with. We used to watch all the UFC pay-per-views and stuff like that. And we would get together and watch, you know, guys like you fight. So it's pretty special to get to talk to somebody that you've seen compete so much. So thank you for the fights, and I'm looking forward to what you got coming in the future.
I appreciate that, man. You know, when I was fighting, I remember, you know, I always wanted to win. I always wanted to, you know, make it, try to get the title and everything. But I remember. After I lost that split decision match there, like I felt like I didn't fight my style. I didn't go out there and try and finish. That was the one fight in my career I remember saying, I don't care how I win, I'm just going to win. And I lost the split decision. So that was, I mean, first of all, painful that it split decision. And second of all, that, you know, I didn't feel like I left it all out there the way I should have. So after that, I was always like, look, I'm never going to lose like that again. I might lose, but I'm never going to lose trying to win the decision. I'm going to try to knock people out or submit them. That's the only way I'm going to try to fight. And it was always important to me. I wanted the fans at the end. Like I wanted, if they saw my name was on the card, I wanted to be like, I'm going to get this pay-per-view because I know there'll be some good fights on it. You know, I know there'll be at least one good fight on it. That's all. I mean, if they're buying it because they knew I'll be there, I was happy, man. I mean, that if nothing else, I think I understood more than some people that this is about entertainment, you know. Going over to Japan a lot, I think they had a different mentality over there. You know, you fought heavier guys. There was no weight class when I first started going over there. And I was like, I had to lie to tell them I weighed like 190 pounds. I was like 175, you know. So they look at me first and like, I've been dieting or whatever. I can't remember what I said. But man, I mean, it's all about going out there, you know, and trying to put on the best show. But you don't want to go out there and lose. I mean, I wanted to win every time, and I tried to put on exciting fights, but I was going to win. But not only win, I want to win my way. You know, I'm not willing to go out there and eke out a decision. I want to try and knock your head off if I was going to win. And I enjoyed the fact that people liked that and understood what I was trying to do. It wasn't a win at all costs to me. I'd rather lose a great fight sometimes than win a terrible one. I know it's not you sound funny saying that sometimes, but I don't know, it's true.
And a couple quick things for me before we sign off here. So as somebody who won as many of the bonuses, especially the early day bonuses as you did, when you would win a fight and it was an exciting fight, or even if it was one where you lost, but you were a fight of the night candidate. Did you root for the other fights to suck?
Oh, hell yes. Oh my God. I was like, no. I remember the one that pissed me off more than anything. So I fight UFC 116. I fight Matt Brown, tough dude, and I got him in a double submission, like a reverse triangle choke armbar. So he's like, yes. And I was like, oh, that's fight of the night. That's why I said, Joe Rogan. He said, what do you call that? I called the fight of the night. So then Brock Lesnar goes out there and he fights Shane Carwin and gets beat up the first round. I was like, no, just stop him. Call the fight. He's not fighting back. So then he just takes it the first round. And I knew Shane Carwin had never been past one round. So I was telling people, if it goes past one round, he's losing. I guarantee it. Well, second round, his arms are just done. Brock shoots him, takes him down, and chokes him just like this. And they gave him sub of the night. I'm like, that wasn't even a good sub. He took my 70 grand. I was like, dude, this is not fair. That doesn't even pay for his growth hormone this year. Come on, give me that money. They didn't give it to me.
Especially somebody they probably were giving, 7 figures to just to show
it.
I'm
like, he doesn't need, just because he got beat up the first round and choked him, it wasn't the best sub of the night. So whatever.
Second quick one. While going down your record, this one's a little bit kind of a funny one, but you fought at UFC 28 and you had a loss, but then you came back. Your next fight, you talk about fights not disappearing from your fighter record. They have you listed as fighting and getting a win against Beaver.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, man, there's a lot of weird stuff on there. That was in India. I'm surprised it's even on there. I don't even know how they did that. I think the guy's name was actually like. His nickname was the Squirrel. I don't know. He was just, I don't know. It came on there, Beaver or something. I don't know. There's just so much misprint. That was back in like the 90s, man. I don't care. Any of that stuff you got to take with a grain of salt because, I mean, man, the internet was brand new. It was funny back then, dude. Like I said, I'm surprised it's even on there because like that was right around the era. Like, yeah, people would be like, your second fight was in Japan. I mean, that's what it says, but I wasn't 1-0. They sent me to Japan. I fought around the Midwest a lot,
Yeah.
That makes more sense. You didn't fight Dave Manet after he had like 30 fights when you only had 3.
Yeah, no, I'd had more than that too. But yeah, that was the toughest tournament ever, man. So I go up, I don't even know Dave Strasser. I meet him up at his place, and we drive up together this tournament. He's in it. I'm in it. Laverne Clark's in it. He's like 4-0 in the UFC at the time. Matt Hughes is in it. He's like, UFC guy. Dave Manet, UFC guy. There's like 6 UFC veterans in that 8-man tournament that day. I drew Dave Manet first, and it was just a bloodbath, man. We beat the brakes off each other, and I remember afterwards, like, he won a decision, and I was like, I was pissed, and I was, Monty Cox comes up to me. He's like, hey, I don't think Dave's going on to the next round. Will you fight Laverne Clark? I'm like, hell yeah, I'll fight him. And then a little bit later, he came back and said, Dave's going to go ahead and do it. And he fought and beat Laverne, and then he dropped out. But it was a brutal tournament, man. It was nuts, man. That's what you got back then. Just everybody wanted to fight at all times. It didn't matter who.
What's your? I saw you put on Twitter not that couple weeks ago because of I'm only asking about it because he's in the news again.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, you kind of invited him to throw hands at BKFC. What's your take on him as a combat sports athlete?
He's not. He's a YouTube guy who has a lot of followers, man. People like him, and I mean, he's trained. I mean, that you can tell when you watch him versus Nate. Nate never sparred. I guarantee you watch him on the bags, he's a beast. Oh, he's probably hitting mitts. Look how good he is. But you can tell he hadn't done any real rounds. I mean, you can tell Paul's been in there and he's been doing the work for a while. But I don't care what you say, unless you've been in there and you've competed a lot in the ring. It's not quite the same. So, I don't know. I just have a little bit of maybe chip on my shoulder, a lot of this millennial type of hype thinking you're on a certain level when you're not, So I'm like, all right, well, hey, I'd love to bring you over to bare knuckle, man. That's my passion right now. I like it, and I'd like to see. Hey, he'd bring a lot of eyes over there. Come on, I mean, you've done this boxing thing. That's great. Now, what could make you, into another realm? Man, go do some bare knuckle, and if you want to do it, hell, I'll do it with you. It'd be fun.
I see a event listed right now. I noticed it today for Thailand on January 2nd. Maybe that's something we can't talk about, but
no, we can't. Yeah.
Is that BKFC? Are they having an event in Thailand?
What they're doing now, they got something called Kingdom and something called Toe the Line, and those are kind of like affiliates. So what we're trying to do here BKFC is, I'd say, kind of like the UFC in a way, like the big deal, the Super Bowl in a way. And we want to have some kind of smaller feeder shows. We don't want people who are like 0-0 fighting for us. We want to have, you've had a couple bare knuckle experiences, at least 1 or 2 fights. So we're trying to get these other affiliates to do some of their own, and then so they're affiliated in some way. I'm not even really sure how that. I wasn't in that meeting, but they're getting some other people to put on some fights, and then if you do well, you graduate, you get to come to BKFC.
Nice. I like that.
It makes sense to me because, like I said, you don't see anybody 0-0 in the UFC. You have to fight in other shows, so that's what we're doing here.
I know that's great. The Total Line series has been great. For fans that are listening, for $3.99 and a small setup charge, the BKFC app is available on a month-by-month basis. Usually get a BKFC event and a Total Line event per month.
Unreal.
Best deal in combat sports.
Best deal in combat sports. You're right. I mean, my God, I want to talk to who's in charge of that because they're undercutting themselves. At least be like $9.99 a month. It's freaking $4 a month. It's less for the whole year than you are going to get, for one UFC fight. It's like, that's nuts, man. I don't get it. But hey, I love it. Let's get as many people watching as we can because you get to hear great insight from people like myself.
So yeah, again, I recommend everybody, not necessarily for the squeamish, but definitely for any fans that are looking for nonstop action. I think it's the best in the business right now. I'm a fan. I look forward to maybe there being an event somewhere out west here. I know California ain't going to legalize it, but maybe we can get into Arizona.
We got it in Arizona. We got them legalized. We're going to put one on there. I think we got New Mexico. We're talking about all these as soon as COVID lets up, or as soon as we can get things going on back there. The Arizona is definitely one of them we're coming to.
Outstanding. I'll be at every one of those shows. I'm a fiend for it, so I will be looking you up when I get out there and buy you a beer or a whiskey or something or water, whatever, both. Yeah, whatever it takes. Just outstanding. Again, big event coming up on Super Bowl weekend. Paige Van Zant, Dat Win, Johnny Bedford, and then in the future, as a fan of the big boys and the big swingers, I'm looking forward to Sam Shoemaker and Joey Beltran hopefully getting done, and Arnold Allen getting back into the mix in the heavyweight division. So thanks for coming on, Chris. It's been an absolute honor for I know both of us to be able to speak to you. We've talked to some good fighters, but nobody with your accolades. So the fact that you made some time for us, we really, really appreciate it.
Of course, man. Mr. Carwell, Matthew, thank you very much for letting me come talk. And anything that you ever let me come back on again, let me know.
All right. Fans can check this interview out at allaccessmma.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at MMAHawk21. You can follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, Old Head Carb on Twitch. Again, Chris, thanks for your time. Look forward to running to you in future events, and let's help BKFC raise up and give us a monthly nonstop chaos that we all loved in the 90s. So
exactly.
Thanks again, brother, and I'll talk to you later, Ed. Have a good night, guys.